Hey, what's up, everyone? Dave here. Welcome to episode 68 of the Pocket Mastermind podcast. On today's episode, I'm speaking to founder of Logo.com, Richard Lau, about his own experience with entrepreneurialism, the ups and the downs and the highs and the lows. He's started multiple businesses with varying degrees of success, more successful as time's gone on, and he's learned from his previous experiences. He also talks about really what you would probably call the month from hell, where he pretty much lost everything financially and got diagnosed with colon cancer, all in a space of just 30 days, with a young son and a wife to take care of as well. So it's, as Richard says, it's not if you'll get punched by life, it's when you're going to get punched and how you deal with those punches when they come that really is going to make the difference to your life. It's a great conversation. I hope you get an awful lot out of it. If you do, please remember to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And with that, let's get on with the show. Richard, welcome to Pocket Mastermind. How are you?
David, I'm very good. Just happy to be here and honored to be here.
Oh, welcome. Looking forward to today's conversation, an interesting conversation, because we're talking entrepreneurialism, and I would cast you probably now as a serial entrepreneur. Is that fair?
Yeah. As long as you
I don't know how many times
the second word is
it.
always entrepreneur, not something terrible.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll talk a bit about you. Carry on.
I don't know at what point you become a serial entrepreneur, but you just kind of fall into it. I don't know if you
have you ever questioned why it is some people seem to have everything they could ever wish for: health, wealth, love, and happiness, but others seem to lack all of these things, don't they? Why is it that small minority manage to achieve greatness, but the vast majority fail to reach even beyond mediocrity? What was it that led you? What are this small minority doing differently to everybody else? It can't just be down to circumstance. Billionaires rise out of poverty. Those questions have been in my head my whole life. And a couple of years ago, I decided to stop wondering and start searching for the answers so that I could help more people achieve greatness in their own lives. So join me and follow along as I uncover the secrets of the minority the majority aren't taught, so that you can apply them to your own life to achieve your own greatness and live the life you want and deserve.
Rather than being
my name is David Bell. Welcome to Pocket Mastermind.
I didn't know that at the time. I just say entrepreneur. I just saw that as a big umbrella. That if you didn't have a boss, then you were an entrepreneur. I look back. My now wife, girlfriend at the time, we came across these coupons for a local amusement park, and I was like, this is like $50 worth of value. Why don't we take them from the dry cleaner that we saw them at, ask them for a stack of them. They were just giving them out, and go the 20 minutes over to the amusement park and sell them outside the front gate. Right? People would be, it's too good to be true. People would be crazy not to
free money.
To buy
Yeah,
them. It was free money, and so we made enough. We sold quite a few of them, literally right outside the front door of this amusement park, and made enough to pay for ourselves to go in, and for all of our goodies and treats and rides and food for the day. And so then the next day, I'm like, I'm gonna go back.
Mhm.
But my girlfriend wasn't available, and so I just went by myself. And like 5 minutes in, security comes up, put their hand on me, like, "Come with me, sir." You know,
Too good to
and
be true.
it was too good to be true. But now I, what did I know? I was like, 15. Um, but now I wish I had gone back and not gotten knocked off the horse, right? Because I could have just done it across the street when it wasn't.
Mhm.
The problem was I was doing it on their property,
Yeah,
right?
just far too obvious. Yeah.
My closing rate might have gone down, but because I would have been across the street, but it would
You
have
would have
been
been shut down.
100% legal, and I would have been shut down, and it was extremely lucrative. So it gone from extremely lucrative to very lucrative, and anyway, you take your successes and your failures, but yeah, that was probably one of my first entrepreneurial side hustles. But really, my entrepreneurial journey started as I was coming out of university. Started a partnership with two friends where we were selling beepers and cell phones, pagers and cell phones,
Mhm.
and we grew that, and we grew it to a point where we couldn't finance the cash flow of the business. So we actually ended up trading a very large purchase order from a retailer for jobs at a new paging company, a new beeper company, because we had a purchase order that we couldn't fulfill. Like we didn't have, we're a couple of 20-year-olds,
Yeah.
21-year-olds, and we couldn't we couldn't buy the inventory in order to stock the retailer. And so we went over to a company and said, okay, well, we'll come in, we'll be your retail arm. And that was very successful, but I ended up spending, 5 years working for this public company,
Mhm.
which was a good experience, because then I had my business degree, I had my short couple of years of entrepreneurialism, and then 5 years, working in a very defined 9 to 5 role, and just grew up through the ranks. Um, and then, basically my last position at the paging company was to divest the public company of all of the pieces. So I was basically chopping it up and selling the businesses off. And then I got into the internet. It was right around 96, 98 in
Mhm.
that time zone. And I started putting services together to help people register domain names. And um, I basically had a 6 month severance from my beeper company, um, and I spent most of that doing a startup of outdoor advertising with convenience stores, which I ended up not doing. I gave that to a friend, which is he's still in business 20 plus years later. And I also did this, a website where you could search for a domain name, register a domain, and then be mailed an invoice. And I, I almost didn't, take off. I was interviewing, getting down to the last couple of weeks of my severance. I was interviewing for positions at a laser eye surgery place to be their operations manager. And I wrote a desperate plea into Yahoo, which was a directory at the time, saying, "Please, can you list me? Like I've paid the consideration thing,
Mhm.
but nothing. I didn't hear any reply back, et cetera, et cetera." And someone took pity on me, never didn't respond, just listed me, and they didn't even write a description. They didn't even capitalize it. They just put
Really?
my website's name, all lower caps.com, in their directory. But that changed my life. Because then I didn't on Monday I had 15 orders, on Tuesday I had 15 orders, on Wednesday I had 15 orders, and it was just like, someone's turned the tap on. I don't need to accept this operations manager position. And I've never looked back. I've really that was set me off onto the online entrepreneur business. And then I saw just the leverage that you could do on online, and it's been fantastic. So that's the long answer to your short question.
It's crazy though, isn't it?
Sorry.
You think about how close, like there was that one decision by somebody somewhere anonymously,
Yeah.
probably completely changed the course of your life from that point on, right? Imagine if you'd have gone then onto another, into that next corporate role. Who knows whether you'd have ended up ever taking the entrepreneurial path? Maybe
Yeah.
not. It's just one of those unknown things. And I think it's a good lesson for anyone listening, that you think it's never, maybe you try something and try something and try something, and it could be a month, it could be 6, it could be however many years, but if you keep going, then there's always that chance that you end up doing something that could be incredible.
Absolutely. And there's 2 lessons to be learned from that, both from the person who's looking for that opportunity, right? Always ask, beg if you have to, right? But
Yeah.
always ask, just ask, always be closing, right? But on the other side, I've never forgotten that I don't know who that hero was in my life. And they have no idea the impact they've had on my life.
Mm.
And so I'm sure we'll come across this later in our conversation, but my motto is be helpful, right? That person was so helpful to me that they have no idea. But I'm always trying to be helpful. I'm trying to pay that back in spades to other people that come to me, whether they're customers or whether they're employees or contractors or just people in my network. And so I'm always trying to be that person
Mm-hmm.
to someone else, because I've received that and it was completely life-changing for me. And it was just, honestly, probably took them 30 seconds, a minute, really.
And they've never thought about it again since.
No,
It's just one of a million things that they've done, right?
exactly.
And they had
But
no idea. And I think it's an important message.
yeah. So the fact that they had that kind-hearted response to my email,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just a delete, archive, which could have been so easy to do, it was life-changing. And so how can you do that in your life? It could be someone listening to your podcast. It could be someone who sends you an email. Could be someone who, is like, your friend's daughter or son, and they're, not sure what they should do. And you just give them a piece of advice, and that piece of advice could change their life.
Hugely. Yeah. So what's the entrepreneurial life then been like for you since that point?
Oh, man, it's been up and down.
Yes, let's talk about this, the warts and all, because I think in many ways, right, at the moment there's, and it's good to a certain degree, but there's a kind of I don't know, it's kind of entrepreneurial porn, right? It's kind of it's be the entrepreneur, which I love the message, because I think a lot of people for the last probably generation, the millennial generation in particular, probably got overly sold the college work kind of route. And when you get there, suddenly everyone's doing it. It's very competitive. Whereas, maybe some people find they're more suited to doing their own thing. We don't fit into a box within a corporate machine, but it's not going to be for everybody. And it is challenging, and it's very mindset heavy. And so talk a bit about your experiences, the good and the more challenging areas.
Yeah, I think, looking back, I was lucky to have good bosses and bad bosses very early on in my working career. So I had a great boss when I was in university, very demanding. He was just like, I don't care, get it. His saying was, get it handled, right?
Mm-hmm.
You come to him with a problem and he's like, get it handled. I don't want to know. Just do it. You're like, oh, I'm gonna have to stay here all night. It's like, get it handled. Right? If you have to stay here till 4, stay here till 4, but don't complain to me. You've got a job to do. Mm-hmm. Get it done. And I was 19 at the time, and I was like, oh, this is what you do, right? And then later, when I was in the paging beefer business, I had some really bad bosses that had on their to-do list, try and get Richard to quit so we wouldn't have to pay him severance. So you can imagine that when that was their
that's
official,
an environment you want to be in, yeah.
Right? So I had bosses that would swear at me, set me up politically, just all that Dilbert stuff, just terrible, terrible stuff.
I've been through similar experiences,
Yeah.
and it becomes the main art of the job becomes outwitting the bad boss.
But then one of the guys that was kind of a mentor to me said, life's too short to make someone else rich. So why don't you just do your own thing? And so that's when I struck out and said, okay, let's explore this internet stuff. And, you know, um, it's looking back at life. I just turned 50 last year. So I've got
I
a
could
lot
not believe
of,
you're 50. That's ridiculous. I want your help regime.
So I've got a lot that I wish I knew when I was, in my early 20s. And one of the things is, and the wisdom is all out there. It's, and a lot of it's for free now on YouTube, or books. And one of the things, is that life is going to punch you in the face, and it's not if, it's when.
Yeah, and how
And
often?
and how often, and how you react to that punch is what is going to define your life. Because you can get hit in the face and be like, I didn't deserve that, that's not fair, and you can be the victim, and you can be, you can just be outraged, etc., which in a lot of cases is the correct response.
Yeah.
Or you can be like, you know what? I'm going to get myself back up. I'm not going to let them keep me down. I'm going to, the best revenge is to live a good life, and not be, not allow that punch to victimize you any further. And it can be a trite thing to say. So I'm not painting everyone's life with the, I'm not speaking to everyone's trauma. For me, I was 30. My wife and I had just moved to Bermuda, and business was flying high. And then in the span of 30 days, our website was hacked and all of our customer data was deleted.
Wow.
Our biggest competitor came out and cut our profit, cut the profit out from the business. And so instead of being the market price being $35 on a cost base of 15, they were now $3. So it was, profit was $3 on a cost base of 15. So they lowered the price from 35 down to 18 when the cost was 15. And so, I'm just like, oh my goodness. And then I check myself into the hospital because I'm passing blood, which I think is an ulcer, and it turns out to be colon cancer.
Good.
So, like you say, it's how hard are you going to get hit in the face, and how often? Well, I got hit 3 times in a month, and I was told that I wouldn't leave the hospital and get my affairs in order. And my son was 3 months old. So that's a real going through the tunnel and not knowing if there's going to be light on the other side. So I had faith in God, and I won't go through the whole story, but basically I came out of the emergency surgery, and they were they sent off the samples for determination of what it was, and it came back as stage A, which is like the best case scenario.
Nice and
They thought
early.
they thought it was stage D because of the size, and they were like, this is incorrect. We have to treat it as if it's stage D. We need to get you started on chemotherapy right away. And we're like, no, we'll wait for the chemo. Let's send, can you get a second opinion? Yeah, the second opinion's gone off to Johns Hopkins. Anyway, that comes back stage A. And they're like, we've never seen this before. This is like a miracle. You don't need chemo. We're going to release you from the hospital, even though we didn't think you'd ever leave, even with chemo.
Wow.
And, it was like, okay, you've just been told you're going to die and now you're not going to. So how do you live your life?
Mm-hmm.
And I was 30 at the time. So I feel lucky now because if I had kept going down that path of working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, that's why I was like, oh, of course I've got an ulcer, right? Of course I'm passing
Yeah.
blood, right? I'm sleeping at my desk.
You're burning the candle.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I'm living in Bermuda and I've been to the beach twice, um, so I wasn't surprised to be unhealthy. And so, yeah, it was interesting. I traded my company. I was like, oh, you know what I should do? I should go back to that 9 to 5 job. Let somebody else worry about
Mhm.
everything, right? So I traded my company for a job and private paper, and did it very quickly. Didn't do my due diligence, and moved to California. Fast forward a year, I've had a great time working like 30, 35 hours a week, living in California. I don't even know where my jacket is. It's just like
Yeah.
fantastic lifestyle. I'm getting healthier, focusing on what I'm eating, spending time with the family. But on the business side, the company that we had merged in with was doing all kinds of Enron accounting. If you
Mm.
remember Enron, but
Oh yeah, I
it,
remember Enron, right?
so fast forward a year, and basically the company is worthless, that we merged in with, and the only assets that they have of value are the ones that I vended in. And so 97% of the value of the company is gone. 3% of the company is what I brought in, but they have debtors and they own and creditors. And so they're like,
Yeah.
okay, Richard, you're going to get 6 cents on the dollar. Right. And so I fought that tooth and nail, and ended up getting, a severance check, basically, which I split with 2 partners. So I come
Oh,
back to Vancouver and I'm basically penniless, right? Not
jeez.
quite penniless, but I've got a few months of severance,
Yeah.
right? So it's kind of like the same thing. I've got like a 6 month severance, and I'm starting back over. And everyone's like, "Oh, you've been in Bermuda, you've been in California, you're coming back." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm like,
But
I'm living
that's the
off
thing, isn't it?
credit cards."
There's an important thing there, right? The
Yeah,
external perception is, you've been living in Bermuda, you've been living in California,
yeah,
life's amazing, right? But
yeah,
you don't see
yeah.
all of the other stuff that's happening, and then the cycle of going from the up, the down, the up, the down. Like, it's just, that's not what people
Exactly.
see, because they're too, everyone else is doing their own thing all of the other
Yeah,
time, and one eye on what's happening,
yeah.
and they just see the surface level things.
Yeah, so in today's world, now I'd come back and I'd start a course on how to, and I'd
Yeah,
charge people $20,000 for this course. But no, I mean, I came back and I started buying and selling domain names. I was like, instead of selling the shovels, let me actually get in alongside these guys that I've been providing services to for now 4 or 5 years, and see how they are making money. And so it was buying and selling domain names and brokering names. And so I did that from about 2002 for about 10 years, just buying and selling domains. And it was a great lifestyle, because that gave me the opportunity to not have employees,
Hmm.
not have, looking back, I used to have 3 offices in 3 different time zones. And so now for the next 10 years, I was like, what can I do that will allow me to work from home, allow me to spend time with my family? We homeschooled our kids. Like I still worked very hard,
Hmm.
but my schedule was like 8 until noon, and then, 4 until 10 or 12 at night. So I still did long days, but it gave
But
me,
you're around.
I was always around, right?
Mm.
4 hours in the middle of the day to go off and do like a field trip, or and then and home for dinner, home for breakfast, right? It was a really good lifestyle. Um, and
I think
then
that's something worth
yeah,
something worth considering, right? Is because one of the advantages we've taken in the entrepreneurial life is you can kind of decide how you want your life to be first, and
Yes, yeah,
then think about how you want to work around that. Do you want to build up a big organization and therefore, have all of that extra responsibility, or do you want to actually you can still make an incredibly good living by doing something by yourself and making it more of a lifestyle business, and you have that
yeah.
flexibility. And I think that's the important part for, when you're thinking
Hmm.
about, because you hear a lot now about, oh, 4-day weeks is the way forward. I think, like Sweden or somewhere's gone to 4-day
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah.
Well, I think you only want a 4-day week if you don't enjoy what you're doing. If you're
Right.
enjoying what you're doing, then you don't necessarily need to have a time limit. But you have the flexibility to work around you and within your life, rather than kind of
Yeah.
arbitrarily making it just these 4 days of the week.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you are working, if I was, I started out in insurance when I was in university, and if I was in insurance, yeah, I would definitely want a 4-day week.
Yeah, or three.
Um, right. And then take the weekends off, and yeah, you can I'm not saying that it's the wrong life, right?
Yeah.
People might want that life. They want that stability, the
Hmm.
paycheck. You don't have to worry. You don't have to lose any sleep. You don't
Indeed.
have
Yeah, definitely.
people relying on you. And you get your exhilaration from your hobbies,
Hmm.
your relationships, etc. If you're an entrepreneur, and I mean by that I mean an entrepreneur who is starting something up, hiring people, growing that business, and growing it to that business so that it doesn't rely on you as a person, so that you can then sell that business. To me, that's the full entrepreneur.
To be an
Otherwise,
owner.
yeah, to be an
Yeah.
owner that can exit. If you are, self-employed, that good on you, right? If you're a lifestyle entrepreneur, where if you stop working, you've got nothing at the to sell, then that's what I was doing for 10 years. And then I was like, I want to build something that I can sell.
Hmm.
And I fell into an opportunity. I was going to take a year off and figure out what that was, and I really fell into this opportunity. I've been supporting Water School, waterschool.com, which is a clean water charity, focusing on Uganda. And I'd been supporting them for a number of years, and we'd done some head shaves at conferences, just late at night. And at that point, I was like, I had committed. I was on the board, and I had committed that, hey, in January, every January, we will raise $20,000 by shaving people's heads. And then January, so the fall of 2013 came, and the conference that was supposed to be announced for January, in LA, the organizers hadn't announced the dates. I was like, what's going on? Like, I need to organize where we're going to shave people's heads. And found out that they were thinking of either not having the conference at all, or having it sometime later in the year. And I was like, the charity needs this money.
Yeah.
It's a small charity. And so I was like, oh, why don't I just organize something? I'll call it a non-conference conference. We'll just get a bunch of people together, get them drunk, get them to shave their heads, and pledge money to the charity, right? We'll get like 60 to 80 people together. I'm going to Vegas anyway for the affiliate summit show. We'll do it then. And so I start to put some announcements out, and I hand register a name for it, namescon.com, for domain names, namescon. And then a couple of people reach out to me, and we actually make it into an actual conference.
Hmm.
So by the end of it, long story short, because we're filling this vacuum, right? There's a need. They have a budgeted spend. Like, they've been
Hmm.
spending money every January for 8 years, and then suddenly they have a blank January. And so we step in, NamesCon steps in. And it's like, hey, spend your money here, right? It's in the same. We're stepping right into these people's shoes, and it's in Vegas instead of LA. Anyway, we had almost 600 people show up. And we raised almost
Amazing.
$100,000
Wow.
for the Water School charity. And it was a fantastic learning experience. It was my first conference, and we actually grew the conference over the next few years to 1,500 attendees, and then sold it. And that was like, okay, a nice sale.
Mhm.
My previous sale had been a disaster because I ended up with like my health, but a severance check. So this was like what I felt was my first real exit, and so that was very satisfying. And at the same time, we were also growing Resume.com, and so we had put together a team to take one of a super premium.com domain,
Mhm.
build a team, build a business, and then a couple of years after selling NamesCon, we sold Resume to Indeed. And
Oh,
so
right.
Indeed.com, yeah, it's the world's largest job board company. And we had 4 million users, 10 employees. It was a solid exit as well. And so we're like, okay, I think we're getting the hang of it, right?
We're starting to know this game now.
Yeah. And so then we took another super premium domain that we had been thinking about for a number of years in terms of what the business should be, what the need is, and where the opportunities are, to really turn an industry on its head. And so we took logo.com, and we are doing basically a repeat of resume.com, where we're building out a local team, which is much more expensive than offshoring.
Mhm.
But so we're using an onshore team, local presence, writing almost everything from scratch ourselves, so that we know and own all of the code.
Mhm.
And going through, we're bootstrapping it ourselves, and just getting out there and putting together. Basically, it's an automated logo maker. So instead of doing the back and forth of 1 to 3 weeks with a
Mhm.
designer, you can come to logo.com and in 20 minutes have a logo. And our pricing starts at $20. So we make the value proposition so ridiculously a slam dunk
Mhm.
that we're building something that we would use ourselves, and then offering it at a tremendous value to everyone else. And it's what we did with the conference. It's what we did with Resume, and we're doing it again with logo.com.
So what was what's the thing you've kind of learned throughout each of those kind of the last three businesses, I suppose, that you've
Mhm.
built on? What are the things that you've kind of really kind of zeroed in on, that you think you're now kind of rinsing and repeating, that's allowing you to kind of build upon that success?
I mean, I touched on it before, but the motto of "be helpful," right? So we're not here trying to, pull one over on people. In the resume business, people were trying to pull one over on the customer,
Hmm.
really. Um, you know, they would sign people in for a monthly subscription, and the only way to cancel was in writing, by registered mail, et cetera, et cetera. When I was in Vegas and went through the Zappos tour. You see this different culture. I mean, they're selling shoes, right? Uh, I'm sorry, I'm not a shoe guy, so I'm not a sneaker guy, but to me, shoes are shoes, right? But
Yeah.
they brought a different culture to shoes. And I was like, well, why don't we do that when we're building Resume? Well, why don't we do that for Resume? Let's build a
Mhm.
different culture. If you're 3 months in, you don't like the billing, we'll give you a refund. We're not just the refund that you're asking for. We'll give you a refund of all of your money, because we don't want your money if you don't want our service,
Mhm.
right? If you don't feel that we've given you value, money is a thank you. If you don't think that we've given you value, we don't want your money, because we don't deserve it. And so it was, taking that approach, right, of being helpful. I mean, in England, when you go to a pub, right? Well, let me start
When
this.
we used to go to the pub.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, when you used to go. Well, in North America, when you go, if you're in Vegas and you go to the bar and you get a beer, and the beer is $8, you're leaving 2 as a tip, right? If
Yeah.
it's $7, you're leaving 3 as a tip, right?
Yeah.
It, you go to the pub, You know, I went to the pub, you know, the first time by myself. I try to leave a tip. The the barkeep looks at me like I've got two heads, and they're
Yeah, yeah,
completely insulted, right? Because leaving them a tip is like they're beneath you, whereas you know you're the apparently the correct thing is, you know, you're like, oh, and one for you, right? And they
yeah.
add on the cost of a pint, you know, and you don't do it every single time. You do it when you're doing a round, you do it every other time you're up there, etc. You know, there's nuance. But the
There is
point is,
sub etiquette. Yeah,
right? The point is that the person on the other side isn't working for you. They're your friend,
yeah.
and the money exchange is just for that service. And so we tried to build that into the conference business, the logo business, the resume business, which is, hey, we're here to help you. If we
Hmm.
can't help you, then don't pay us. But if we can help you, even if it's something that's not something we're not selling, we're going to try and help you, right? So, you know, when you come to logo.com and you ask us for something, and yeah, we don't do that. We could end it there, but instead we're like, yeah, we don't do that. But why don't you try this guy? Why don't you try this guy? Or why don't you try this guy? And they're not affiliate links. We're
Yeah.
just trying to be helpful, right? Even if we can't sell you something that we're offering, we're
Hmm.
still going to try and be helpful. And so we bring that British hub culture to our businesses. And yeah, we're not working for all of our clients. We're working with all of our clients. We're working on this automated logo making tool editor, and we're trying to make it better and better for our customers, so that it's helpful to them. We're not building it so that we can just take their money,
Hmm.
and that, you know, I come across so many businesses, especially in North America, where it is just a, hey, we're just here to take your money, and we're, you know, that's why think about like the cable company or the internet provider or your mobile service provider. They all have this this feel of not being friendly, and
Yeah.
so you know, when Virgin Mobile comes in and they have all of these friendly policies, or T-Mobile did, it turns the industry on its head, because people are like, oh, finally I'm dealing with somebody like we're a British
An
pub, not
organization. Yeah.
right, not like we're at McDonald's, right? And so it's a different dynamic, and we try and bring that, and it permeates through to the team as well, which is very important. And it's an interesting. It just makes life more fun. Honestly, you don't feel like you're doing a grind.
Yeah.
You're not, you know, just there to deliver goods to a customer. You're there to help them in their journey.
I think the one advantage of many businesses being quite abstract and cold and not very human is that if you then run a human centric kind of organization and you listen to the customer and you're actually engaging in a way that adds value, it stands out absolute mile. You know,
Yes.
because it's not as common anymore as it used to be. You know, when businesses were much smaller and they were owned and operated by by that same person, right? And so whether you had a good experience mattered, because it mattered whether you were going to come back.
Right.
Whereas now everything is, you know, managers and employees, and they don't have the same vested interest in the long-term success. They're effectively passing through, and that
Yeah.
kind of makes its way through to customer experience. Whereas, so now if you can provide that kind of old-fashioned style warmth, customers remember it and they keep coming back. And you know, you talk about the Zappos example. I remember the story, I can't remember who heard it from someone like Tony Robbins was talking about, you know, back in their early days, they were burning cash and had no route to profitability and success. And they were like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And they brought some great people in and said, well, you need to make the irresistible offer. You got to make it a no-brainer for the people. And that's where the free returns came from,
Right.
which now kind of free returns in most businesses is a fairly common thing. Some people still
Yeah.
make you pay to return the stuff, but you know, it seemed back then was like a absolute terrifying prospect to say, well, everyone's just going to order a load of stuff and then send it all back. But it
Exactly.
worked out massively well for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with logo.com, we're just trying to pack, time savings in. The cost of the logo isn't that much, but if you look at it from the customer's point of view, when they're looking at it and they, we don't have free returns because we're doing a virtual thing. We're not shipping our logos back and forth. But let's say, you buy a logo and then from our competitor, and then you're like, okay, now I need to put this into my Facebook cover, or I need to adjust it and have it go into LinkedIn, or what am I going to do when I want it to go into the circle on my Twitter profile? And it's like, you know what? Why don't we just provide a tool where we're saving you the 30 minutes that you're going to spend on each one of those? And let's just, every time a customer asks for a different file size, we'll just add it to the tool set. And so now we've grown our social media and profile picture tool set to be like probably 8 hours worth of finicking, right? So now you buy a logo and you get the social media pack. It's like $60 and it saves you 8 hours, right? And what does that cost us? It costs us a fraction, but the value that we deliver, like if you value your time at $15 an hour, it's $120.
Exactly.
It's like, right, it's just like, what can we do to make that irresistible offer, right? And so we that's what we're doing every day, is trying to add on additional templates, add on additional AI, and add on additional tool sets, so that it makes it just like, oh my goodness, the cost of the logo was almost free because of all the time savings that I'm getting from this. And so, yeah, the irresistible offer that you mentioned, that's really what we're definitely striving for.
And the customers will give you the clues as to what that's likely to be. Once you're up and running, like you're saying there, like customers ask for this and ask for that. If you can, just start giving it to them, right? Because you're already removed. They're the barriers that you've got, or barriers of what customers have already got. If you can knock those barriers down because they say, hey, can you do this? And you go, yeah. I mean, if one person asks for something in this world now, it's highly unlikely that they're a snowflake. There's going to be loads of thousands of other people, hundreds of thousands of other people that want the same thing that they want. And I think we can get caught up in thinking, oh, there's just this, if there's one person, it's just one person, and that's not the scenario at all in any walk of life, right? There's huge people, and there's probably very few types of people, if that makes sense. We all want similar things in some way.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I learned early on at the paging business was that customer service is the most important role in your business, because you're on the front lines, not with a customer or potential customer who's about to open their wallet. You're with someone who has opened their wallet and has a vested interest in the success of your business. And so the advice that they give to you, which can be in the form of a complaint, or it can be in the form of a request, or it can be in the form of a question, but the advice that they're giving you, you have to take to heart. And so in all of the businesses that I've run, I've never asked someone who's working as part of the team to do something that I would not be willing to do myself, or that I've not done myself. Whether that's if literally at the paging company, the janitorial service had an issue, they couldn't come for a week. Like, okay, who's going to clean the bathroom? As the operations manager, I was the first one to do it. I'm like, okay, this is the sign up sheet. We have to split this up. Who's going to do it? I'm taking the first round, okay? Because you need to set that example. And then, but my point is that customer service is so important that at logo.com right now, our customer service tickets are answered by myself, our head tech, our lead programmer, and our lead designer. So we don't have a $2 an hour customer service rep who's offshore. we have guys that are being paid top Silicon Valley dollars answering your customer service, not because we want to offer the best customer service, but because the best advice for our business is coming from our customers. And so the best way is not to have it filtered through someone saying, oh, this customer faced this. It's like you're dealing with that customer's pain and anguish right now, right? You're dealing with their odd request right now, because as you said, David, that person is not a snowflake, right? When they have a problem, there's probably 10 other people who are just like, oh, forget it, I'm out of here. And
Yeah, they just didn't bother to
silently
say
left.
anything. Exactly. Someone,
Yeah,
one person says something, there's 100 people behind them that didn't bother, and they just walked out the door.
exactly. So, and we definitely we've built all of our businesses based on customer feedback. So, yeah, the customer service department is the most important department, even above sales and marketing, because you need to make sure that the customers that have opened their wallet are treated correctly, that they're the ones who will tell you why they bought and what they want and what they're, what they thought was there and isn't there. So, once you fill all of those potholes in, you're going to have a nice smooth road. And so it makes your sales and marketing so much easier.
Hugely important. I think for anyone listening now who's thinking of starting any kind of business, is to really listen to that advice, because I've seen so many times people going into business who their customers give them valuable information, and they'll argue with the customer that they're wrong. The customer just doesn't get it. They just the customer's stupid. Or like, right. No, it's the other way around. Right? You're trying to sell this product or service to this group of people, and this group of people are telling you that they don't get it, or it doesn't work, or whatever it is. Right. You got to listen to these people. It's not them that are wrong. Whatever, there's something in your process or in your product that's not working the way it should do for them to feel comfortable and happy about it.
Exactly. That's exactly true. Yeah.
So before we wrap up, a couple of other quick questions. One thing that I like to ask people about is routines, because the thing I've found as a theme, and I've had these conversations, and over the years working with and for different people, is there's a varying approach to how you start and end your day. And some people, it's nothing at all. But what I've definitely found is there tends to be some kind of habit pattern for most of the people that seem to be moving forwards in life, if that makes sense. So how do you start and end your days?
I do have a routine, and whether it's conscious or not, I definitely do have a routine, which is my cat gets me out of bed.
Is that the alarm clock?
Yeah, I have a slave to our cats. I get out of bed, I do the litter. I have my bowl of cereal every morning. And it's kind of the hoodie mentality, which is like, if you have a hoodie as your, the less things you need to think about, right? That's part of your routine. The less things that you need to think about, the more mental cycles you can spend on other things, whether it's your business or life. And so I get up, litter, cereal, shower, get to my desk.
Nice, short and sharp.
That's it. Yeah. I don't even have to think about what am I doing? What do I need to do first? It's just like go and then get to my desk and then dive into emails.
What do you do at the end of the day? Let's say, because you said earlier, kind of your working schedule can fluctuate a bit, but what do you do before you go to bed?
I'm not the greatest at that, but I've been trying to cut down on the amount of TV watching and replace that with reading, but I haven't been as successful as I want to be on that.
That's because the TV's a powerful machine.
Yes.
I'm the same as you. I'd love to be able to read more in the evening. I read in the morning, but I don't tend to read in the evening as much. So I end up like you, not for a long time, but with the TV, right? It's there. It looks at you, so it says, "Come and watch me."
Yeah. So my wife is an amazing cook, and I try and balance that out with trying to be an amazing cleaner. So my evening routine is to close the house down, make sure it's clean, and kind of reset for
Mm.
the next day, so that yeah, it doesn't matter how big how big a success you feel you are in your own business world. I think it's important and grounding to drive the kids to school every now and then. For me, it's cleaning the kitchen, putting the dishwasher on, turning off all the lights, making sure everything's locked, and then wander up stairs and have a visit with my wife before the lights are out. And yeah, try and get into bed and get to sleep by 11 p.m.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's important to have that. I think closing down at the end of the day and not having stuff left over, like
Mhm.
you were talking before, having fewer things to worry about in the morning. Everything builds on that decision fatigue throughout the day. If you start the day and you've kind of left the stuff from the day before and you walk down into the kitchen, it's like,
Yeah.
that's not going to start your day well, right? So you want to give yourself the best chance of the day starting as smoothly as possible. You don't there's no point tripping yourself up before you've even got up.
Especially if it's your partner who's walking down before you,
Yeah,
right? So if you left
exactly.
everything the night before and they walk down and you're hoping that they're going to make you a cup of tea, no, it's not going to happen. The sink is full of dishes. No, and it's just not. It's a great way to start the day. My wife actually taught me, if you've got a call in the morning, you've got a trip, when we used to travel, if
Yeah.
you have a trip in the morning or you've got a meeting in the morning, pack your bag the night before and have it by the door. So yeah, if I had when I would go to the office, my backpack would be packed the night before, so that when I get up and I do my morning routine,
Mhm.
I just come down, grab the keys, grab the bag, and go out. I don't have
Yeah.
to do any running around. Where's this? Where's that? No, I've done that the night before. Yeah. So yeah, there are small life tweaks that you can do to just make your life smoother. And yeah, routine is very important in that.
Yeah, I habitualize as much as I possibly can so that you don't have to think about too much. We're nearly at the end, but quickly, if you could recommend one book, what would that
You
book
know,
be? It's really hard for one book, but try.
Yeah, I mean, when one book that I would say everyone has to have read is E-Myth, or now it's so old, it's called E-Myth Revisited.
Revisited, yeah.
So because that really opened my eyes to what is the difference between being self-employed or being an entrepreneur, and what's the difference between building a business and working on your business. And I've now exited 3 businesses, and I've learned that when you're starting your business, you have to have that exit in mind. And really, you know I, I kind of give myself a pass on the first one, that we were in such a rush to get out that we didn't follow the advice that was in the E-Myth. And so if you can't step away from your business on say 3 weeks notice, then do you have a business or do you have a job
Yeah.
where you are the boss? And so that's the difference of working on your business versus working in your business. And so to me, I see so many people that are trapped inside of self-employment, including my father. And so when he was working, he's not working anymore, obviously. But that those are life lessons that people sometimes they get stuck and they don't know why. It's kind of like the old fish is swimming along and he passes 2 young fish and he says, how's the water today? Right? And then the one young fish turns to the other young fish and he's like, what the hell is he talking about?
What's water?
Right? Because they don't know they're in water, right? So it's
Exactly.
kind of like be aware. And so the E-Myth is my high recommendation, because it can really open your eyes. You can think you're an entrepreneur, read the book and be like, oh my goodness, I'm not.
Yeah,
But it doesn't mean that you can't be. You just need to correct some things, right? Take notice of what it is. Take notice of the water that's around you.
and I think that's the first step that a lot of people make is, I'm going to go and do my own thing, and you end up with a job with more responsibility. You're now running the business, you're responsible for everything, and
Right.
you're doing the job. Yeah, and I think the E-Myth's a great book for illustrating that difference. One
Yeah.
last question: if you could spend one day with anybody, dead or alive, who would that person be?
Probably Jesus.
Hmm.
Because I was like, what's the story here? Because you got Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all writing it, but I want to go to the source, right? What actually happened here? Beyond that, cliche, I'd probably say Richard Branson. I've read a lot of his books. I like his style. He's just seems like the right amount of crazy to me. I think Elon Musk is a little too much crazy for me.
Yeah, he is a little bit more.
I've got a mug that my wife bought me that says crazy on it. And so, yeah, I think that Richard Branson is just the right amount of crazy for me, and I'd like to learn from him.
Yeah, he's got some really good books. Definitely worth checking out. Richard's been really, really good speaking to you, and time has flown by. We didn't quite stick to time, but it's been really interesting. Where can people find you and learn a bit more about you or your business or your journey?
I am Richard at logo.com. So pretty easy name to spell, passes the radio test, Richard at logo.com. And I live and breathe on LinkedIn. I'm a firm believer in building out my LinkedIn network and being open to helping people out. So feel free to reach out to me at LinkedIn. You can go to Lau, which is my last name, lau.com, and that's the shortcut over to my LinkedIn page.
Amazing. Richard, again, thank you very, very much for giving up your time, and hopefully we'll speak again soon.
Thank you, David. Really appreciate being on here.
Lovely. Cheers, Richard.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to this conversation. If you enjoyed it and you'd like to hear more similar episodes, head over to pocketmastermind.com, where you'll also find the links mentioned in this conversation. And if you haven't done so already, please leave us a review. It will really help us to get our message out and let more people know about these episodes. So leave us a review, leave us a rating, hit the subscribe button, and please share with your friends. Until next time, thank you again for listening.